We're going to kick things off with a match that made me say, Mark, why did the bad man do this? To the other man.
Yeah.
It's Sid Vicious versus a man called Lee Scott, the world's unluckiest man.
He really is. He really is. This is a squash match from 1990 on WCW. And squash matches don't really happen anymore. They were used in the past because you didn't want to give away big matches on television. You know, it didn't matter what you put on TV. Wrestling always got good figures, and advertisers never paid much for the adverts. So there was no point giving people stuff that they could see on television when you could try and get them through the doors.
Yeah.
Live shows were where wrestling companies traditionally made their money. So you didn't give away the big matches on television. You just used television as a showcase for the stars you had.
Yeah.
And this match is the best example of that. This match is really important to me because it was the first ever NWA match I ever saw. So,
really? Wow.
Because for a brief while, NWA, WCW used to be broadcast on ITV. And it went out between 1:30 and 4 in the morning on a Sunday night.
Nice.
Prime time, baby.
Time. What else you got on there? A 70s sci-fi film that nobody wants to see?
Yeah.
Oh, stick that on.
It wouldn't even be stuff like that. It would be stuff like really obscure old sports that they'd replay. just strange stuff. But what you'd have to do is you'd watch That's Life, you'd get ready for school in the morning, and you'd set the video. And the video timer was, you know, always a bit hit and miss.
Yeah.
Maybe 2 out of every 8 would be properly successful. I measure things out of 8, don't ask why. And the other thing was ITV, because they had, you know, things would overrun, that would be knocked on. So there was every chance, every time you did it, it was like Russian roulette.
Yeah.
And the first time it worked for me, I'd never seen NWA before, popped the tape in, and it started at the moment where they go, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sid Vicious. And I was like, that's a good name. This guy is big. And then there followed perhaps the finest 3 minutes of professional wrestling of all time.
Because I've never seen Sid Vicious do this, I would have a very different opinion of Sid Vicious if I'd seen this first.
Completely. At the time, you know, WWE, this was on, we were sort of in the period of Ultimate Warrior being the champion. You were building sort of Sergeant Slaughter. There was Colonel Mustafa. These were quite boring guys. And it was also very bright. It was very professional. And suddenly you go to this thing, which at the time to me looked like an underground fight club.
Yeah.
It's great. I mean, they've got a black ring. Who has a black ring? It's the ring they bury Lee Scott in. And out comes Sid Vicious, and he's huge. At this point, he's primarily known as a member of the tag team, the Skyscrapers, with Dangerous Danny Spivey, who comes out with him. But you can really see that the NWA had something really, really special with Sid. He was one of the few people they had who was big, who was built, and who looked like a star. He comes out, and he's just monstrously big, just huge. And Lee Scott was a jobber around this time.
Yeah.
Never had a star run. I think he was also a referee, which is often a job that they give to people who don't have the physique. So it's people who train as wrestlers but are too small to actually compete in the ring. But this was during his brief and I would say ill-advised period as a jobber.
Yeah.
He's wearing very much of the time. His gimmick is basically he's got some sort of flashy
pants.
They're sort of neon-y. And what follows is I would argue this could be the best 2-minute match of all time. It really could, because every single move is the best move that could possibly have been done.
It's the best example of every move done, because the person who is getting it is not necessarily selling it, but certainly experiencing the effect. The herniated discs,
sometimes,
the concussion, the appearance of your guts being jammed into a neutral bullet and turned on.
He would have got back, and he would have obviously had some medical treatment. And they would have said, have you been involved in a car crash in the last hour and a half? And he would say, he'd try and say no. He'd probably go, boo, 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 like
try and write it in the spinal fluid that come out of his nose.
It's just amazing. Now, the thing I also love about this match is not just that it's the best, not just that it's an absolute onslaught, but it's the fact that Sid Vicious himself cannot quite believe how brilliantly this is going. So it starts off, Lee Scott gives him a couple of kicks and some punches just to show, you know, it's just like a fly bouncing off this huge Sherman tank.
Yeah.
And Vicious grabs him and he pulls him in for a clothesline. A move we've seen a million times before. and the clothesline absolutely turns Lee Scott inside out.
It inverts him.
Yeah, he goes from a standing position, he is on his belly, and that takes half a second, and the crowd just go, oh my God.
That was a bit much, everyone's thinking.
And Sid Vicious, credit to him, he doesn't just go, shit, that was great. He simply turns round and, screaming, gets down on one knee and holds his arm out. Like, I am fury. I am nature. Here I am. Look at my works, ye mighty and despair. Lee Scott does a very good thing of kicking his leg. Like, oh my fucking God, that hurt. Incredible. Sid Vicious then picks him up in a gorilla press slam. And gorilla press slams over the top of their head. A classic sort of thing. And the Ultimate Warrior would do it. And the Ultimate Warrior would drop you behind and, you know, that sort of thing. Sid Vicious just goes, if I was trying to really injure someone, what would I legitimately do when I had him up here? And the answer is, I'd just throw him over the top rope to the floor. And ideally, I'd sort of just move my hands a slight bit so he over-rotated so there was no way of breaking his fall. Well, that went absolutely to plan.
It's wonderful.
The guy falls. I mean, the ring, 5 foot. Sid Vicious, 6'8". Sid Vicious's arms out. That's 7 foot. We're already 12 foot, right? The guy falls at least 12 feet to the floor.
Unaid, like, just doesn't help himself out. He can't help himself out because he's probably concussed, but good Lord. And then, what's worse, Sid finds himself outside the ring, just picks him up, throws him back into the ring, and continues the onslaught.
The best thing about this is Sid begins experimenting. So Sid has got a thing where he's done his clothesline and he's done his gorilla press slam, and they have both gone much better than planned. And it's almost like he starts going, I wonder if I can just come up with something off the top of my head, because I feel if it's going to work now. So he picks him up in a powerbomb maneuver, holds him over his shoulder with the guy looking up towards the ceiling. And he just sort of goes, I'm going to chuck him off and I'm going to put some spin on it. And he throws him off. And this guy spins through the air, lands, but continues to spin. It defies the laws of physics, but Sid Vicious is just like, I am complete. I have complete control and mastery over physics and leverage and gravity and power. Oh, yeah, power. And then he picks him up and he delivers him a powerbomb. Now, this was the best thing I'd ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
I'd never seen a monstering in this way. And I'd never seen...
It was a mulching.
Oh, completely. And, I mean, if you'd have basically been WWF and you'd have had that match on, and you'd have got that response, Sid Vicious would have been headlining against Hulk Hogan at the next WrestleMania, and it would have been huge. They fumbled him, and they continually fumbled Sid Vicious, and he was fumbled throughout his career. This one moment is the best thing he ever did.
Yeah.
If there was one thing that you went, why was Sid Vicious a good pro wrestler? And you showed someone this, they would say, he was the greatest pro wrestler of all time. My friends and I watched this match again and again and again and again. And we used to cry laughing at every single little bit of it. It was the funniest thing. And there's nothing funnier than the fact that when he gets halfway, where he's sort of going, I'm going to try new stuff, Lee Scott has a very, very visible boner. Like he's just like so far out of his comfort zone that he's found like a nirvana, a sort of sexual nirvana of going,
transcendental boner.
Totally. I have no control over my future or my fate. This could be the last 3 minutes of my life. I am just a passenger now. I am just a vessel. I am an extension of Sid Vicious's desires. I'm going to pop a boner. And this dong just there. I mean, what a abject humiliation for Lee Scott. I took the worst beating in the history of wrestling. And I also seem to be vaguely turned on by it. Just a magic piece of work.
And it all seemed to sort of start. I want to know what would have happened if Lee Scott didn't do the no-sell on the shoulder block. There's a shoulder block at the very start.
Yeah.
It's the first thing Sid Vicious does. And Lee Scott doesn't necessarily sell it that well. And I was thinking, you've brought this on yourself, mate.
I also think that Lee Scott, after that first clothesline where he goes absolutely, 360 degrees, I think Sid Vicious is going, that looked phenomenal. And now I need to keep on going.
Yeah,
I've got to raise it one more. And unbelievably, he does raise it. I think he does four moves. But there is that thing of, you are there, you're enhancement talent. Don't ever no-sell what I do, because otherwise I will put you on my shoulder and you will pop a boner. A very, very important life lesson.
Very enjoyable match as well.
Before we got Sky, which was in late 1990, early 1991, I begged my dad for Sky. I begged him, and it took years. I mean, properly years.
Yeah, because it was complicated. Yeah,
it was.
It wasn't like cable. It wasn't like Freeview or
no. Back in the day, you did have to have a satellite dish put up, and that was a big pain. Yes. And they'd come over and they'd go, "Oh, actually, your house is at a funny angle.
You need to point it somewhere else.
So we're going to have to put a massive stick on it." And my mum was sitting there just going, "What are they doing? I mean, I don't want this in the first place. It looks awful." We got it, and from that point on, my dad never let it go. You know, one of the great ways of getting your dad to get Sky is to get Sky. Because once you've got it, your dad is just like, I can, when everyone's gone to bed at 11:15, I can watch, DSF?
What, like the
German channel?
The pornographic channel?
There'll be some film on, grot. Where there's a woman from the 80s, and you, through her sort of chiffon nightie, you'll be able to see nips. That is never, ever coming down that dish.
Still up now.
Fair play to my dad. My dad has absolutely kept the flame alive. He has never had that satellite dish taken down. I'd love to say that was out of some sentimentality.
No, yeah.
It's just he's lazy.
I just think he saw what happened to the animated GIF. He went away, he came back, the QR code, we all thought that was dead.
Exactly. He's also seen the stories, obviously, about Rod Hull. No? Yes,
yeah,
Rod Hull.
Yeah.
Do you know what? I was going for the Rod Hull.
Roy Hull, yes, confusing, isn't it? We didn't need two people with similar names like that.
Equity should never have allowed that. Part of the reason I send them a lot of angry emails from anonymous burner accounts.
Seeing Royal Rumble is pretty simple. The man who wins is the world champion. So one man has to go through 29 people. But in my case, it's just a little different. 29 people have to go through me. Why? Because I am Sid Justice, and I stand alone.